We can't be in denial. Action has to be taken as quick as possible to fortify the schools, make them safer for the students. Hey, what's going on? It's Scott. And as a former school resource officer, I just really wanted to talk about solutions, generate conversation about solutions when it comes to preventing school killings in America. I, along with so many other people, was absolutely heartbroken by the killing of the kids in Texas. And along with many other tragedies in the past, it's just unbearable because we can't even remember them all. So let's talk about solutions. Let's talk about how to prevent it. And it goes beyond what some people in the federal government and other political offices would have you believe, that this one policy for you know what will be the end all be all of violence. I disagree with that. This is a very wide encompassing topic, and it goes beyond just a certain policy that some politicians are trying to push. This video is not about that. The first thing that I learned when I started in the schools was mindset. I'm dead serious. Mindset. When I went to a school resource officers conference in 2017, I heard one of the best trainers for law enforcement, Lieutenant Colonel David Grossman, say that denial is not a state of survivability. You want to know what we have in some of the schools? Staff and teachers that are in denial. Not all of them. I'm not going to say all of them, but we still have some that say, and you can have this in law enforcement too, where it's, well, the odds of it happening here are pretty low. When I walked into a school, when I worked as a school resource officer, and if I were to think that way, I would be doing my kids no favor at all. I would be mentally behind when it comes to knowing how to respond and willing to respond to protect them. And yes, I called them my kids. They had my heart. Even the ones that didn't ever want to listen to me and just continuously committed crime, whatever, they had my heart. I cared about them. I wanted to see them do better. Tangent over. Here's the deal. Denial can hurt us. And this is what I believe leads to a lack of action when it comes to fortifying the schools. There are some school districts that still, I would mention safety measures, and it would be, well, it's money, the budget. Well, we don't want to give any optics that this is an unsafe school. Forget that. In my opinion, every school in America is a target because for the most part in general, it's what we call a target of opportunity. They're not that well guarded, unfortunately. Even if there's a school resource officer on campus now, we have seen incidents where that didn't matter when it came to preventing the attack. The attack has been stopped before by school resource officers, but they are starting to happen now, whether police are there or not, which leads me to present the other solutions, which is everyone has to have the right mindset. Talked about denial. Everyone has to have the right mindset to address this for what it is. Lieutenant Colonel David Grossman also talked about the point that we can't keep calling it school shooters. Shooting is a sport. And I'll never forget him saying that. These people come onto campuses and try to kill as many as they possibly can. They are killers. They are attackers. They have evil intentions. And we cannot underestimate this threat anymore. Please. So in my opinion, we have to harden the schools. I've already mentioned they are targets of opportunity. We have to harden them. If you really want to see how, in my opinion, a school should be when it comes to security, look up Southwestern High School in Shelbyville, Indiana.
Security breach.
At Southwestern High School in Indiana, the kids drill. The classroom doors are bullet resistant. They're connected live with the sheriff's department 10 miles away.
Real-time cameras, so no matter where the suspect goes, they can keep setting off these hot zones so he stays blind.
Now that is a school that takes its security seriously. And I like that. I'm also in favor of paying former military and retraining them and continuously training them to be guards in the school. I know plenty of veterans would step up, or having certain staff with firearms on campus. I think there's either a guideline or a law in Florida where if there's 500, it's one officer for 500 kids. So if there's more than 500 students in a school, there's another police officer. I agree with this because I worked in a high school one time where I think there were about 1,900 students and I was the only school resource officer. I did not agree with that. I think there needed to be two of us. The school was just too big and too populated.
Brian Higgins is a security expert.
We want to be able to prevent those people who are intent on killing others from getting into the building.
Fences around schools, one point of entry. These are solutions that we can implement pretty dang fast, while the politicians do their thing and trade jabs and try to get votes and sound great, and then, nothing ends up happening. Forget that. We, the people, have to protect our schools. And obviously, I could talk a lot longer about this. But one thing I noticed while working as a school resource officer was the fact that a lot of students feel very lonely. A lot of students do not feel happy inside, and particularly with the lockdowns that didn't help mental health at all, students will do things that can shock the conscience. Just like, why would someone do that? All to gain likes, comments, and attention, particularly via social media. Are we going to be able to completely disband social media and not let the students get to it? I don't think so. But what I do believe is that no school should allow any student to have their phone at all. Like, they can't have it with them, because there was so many times the staff and I would have to investigate incidents that occurred during the day because someone posted something on Facebook or someone posted something on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever the case was. Gosh, they posted something. One incident I remember, it totally ruined the whole day. There was a bad rumor that went amok and went viral and had parents coming to the school thinking that their students were facing imminent death, and it was all a rumor. So I think that schools should not allow phones during the day, because this is actually a safety measure as well. And at least for that day, the students also won't have their minds exposed to just the toxicity and the negativity that can happen on social media. Thank goodness I was raised in a period where there wasn't social media. I remember a student one time came into my office. She was devastated and she wanted to fight everybody in the school because, unfortunately, there was a student who she had a relationship with. They were breaking up and people were going at her like crazy on social media. And she just came into my office defeated. And I told her, I said, I pray that you and all of your other friends remember what it was like to feel the pain and the emotional roller coaster of social media. And when you have kids of your own one day, you don't let them get access to that. And maybe the tide can turn. As a school resource officer, I saw so many students who just wanted attention because, and unfortunately, I got to call it like it is, a lot of them were not loved at home. And Denzel Washington makes a very good point. Reporters have asked him time and time again about, certain things in America. Why do you believe it's happening like this? Why do you believe this is going on? And he says,
I think it's more important to make headway in our own house. By the time the system comes into play, the damage is done.
I believe that these school tragedies, these active attacker mass casualties at any location, not just the schools, particularly when it comes to younger killers, can be prevented if the mindset would shift back to the family and start teaching self-responsibility again. Is this going to be easy? Absolutely not. So in conclusion, I have to say we must have the right mindset. Call it for what it is. The schools are softer targets. Generally speaking, we can't be in denial. Action has to be taken as quick as possible to fortify the schools, make them safer for the students. Don't worry about optics. And if the budget's not there, make the budget for it somehow. Have people on campuses that can eliminate the threat ASAP, because there is that saying, when seconds count, police are only minutes away. I believe every school should have a school resource officer, 2, 3, if need be, depending on the number of students. And I ask patrol officers, please, if you patrol a district that has a school in it, walk that school, get to know it, because if you respond, heaven forbid, the worst case scenario happen, you're not going to know where to go, even though you patrol in that district, because you've never been in the building. And last but not least, this is obviously a very complex subject, and it's going to take a whole bunch of people on fire to be on board with changing America in the sense that people can be with people again. There's so many students that feel isolated, and they'll come to school exhausted because they were up all night on their phones, confiding in their phones and social media, which is just so harmful on their brains. I would see them come in exhausted because they had been up so long at night. And I just got so upset their parents would allow them to do that. And I understand my third point about students having a different mindset is totally a big, complex situation. But I just hate to see so many of them hurting and desiring attention. And one last point I want to make, I beg the media to stop showing the names and stating the faces of these active attackers, because there's others that want just the same amount of fame and they're willing to do the evil act to get it. Focus on solutions. Gosh, obviously I'm passionate about this and I could talk about it for a long time. Some people may not agree with me on this, but we have to generate conversation. We can do this. I know we can. It's going to take work, but we've got to do it. The kids depend on us. I pray that God will help America.